fighting the IOC and working with people in different countries, but we're also specifically fighting the LA Olympics. We have quote unquote won the 2028 Olympics, and our piece of shit mayor and this one businessman, his friend, Casey Wasserman, are the two main driving forces behind this. And Casey Wasserman, I think you'll find fascinating because his whole lineage is, most people haven't heard of him. He is in that talented Mr. Epstein profile from Vanity Fair next to Chris Tucker and Bill Clinton.
No. He went on the flight to Africa with Bill Clinton, Chris Tucker, and Epstein.
And Spacey, I think.
And Spacey.
And as we know, nothing untoward happened on any of those flights.
Yeah. You mean the normal flights they did?
Normal flight. Yeah,
A
normal aid, release,
charity flight.
Yeah, those normal things that we all have done. And so Wasserman, before we get into his and Epstein's relationship, his whole background is wild. So his grandfather was a guy named Lou Wasserman, who was a big-time Hollywood fixer agent for MCA at the time. And he was always rumored to be working with the mafia, the Chicago mafia, I think, specifically. And he was the guy who everyone cites as being the guy who got Reagan into politics.
Oh,
I
no.
think he was one of his clients.
Didn't he also start one of the big agencies?
Yeah, MCA was where he was like the big, and I don't follow the history, like Hollywood history that well, but I do know that he was a true Hollywood original, like first generation scumbag. His son, Jack Myers, who's Casey Wasserman's father, was also got disgraced for being, for money laundering essentially. And now Casey Wasserman is, you know, the face of the Olympics, even though he's like a half billionaire. He's not like a full billionaire.
Money laundering is a family business.
Right. And then, so here's the crazy part too. So he has his money spread all over LA. Most people don't know who he is. He's donated millions to the LA Police Foundation, you know, which is connected to the LAPD.
Of course.
He's, you know, he spent all this money at UCLA, and his big, like, vanity project. It's not so much a vanity project because he also, his main thing is running a sports agency. A lot of his clients are very high-profile athletes. And he has all the
Megan Rapinoe.
And yeah, and all these other kind of big
Oh,
chips,
no.
you know.
Which is how she has such great politics, as we know.
No, I know, and I was trying to be like Megan Rapinoe, disavow working with somebody who was on the Epstein plane. Like nobody should be within
Nah, she doesn't give a
100
shit.
feet of anybody who was on that plane.
So Casey Wasserman is at least some sort of buddies with Jeffrey Epstein. It's been documented for like at least a decade.
They at least went on a trip together.
They know each other, and
Those
so,
are blood
all these people know
brothers,
each
then. That's
other.
like a blood relationship when you go on one of those trips.
I mean, you don't go on the fucking pedophile plane to Africa with Chris Tucker, Kevin Spacey, Bill Clinton, and Jeffrey Epstein without being at least pretty good friends with the rest of those guys.
Yeah, or not, and just being aware, especially if you grew up in wealthy circles,
Yeah.
like that, like who knows what, or like what people are known for, what their reputations are. There's absolutely, yeah, no doubt that they know each other and they're like well documented for doing it. However, at the same time, Casey Wasserman is also the front of LA 2028, and as of last year has Larry Nassar, who's the person who abused all these gymnasts, right?
Yeah.
And is going to jail and all this other stuff. 180 of the survivors of his, you know, horrible shit wrote our mayor and Casey Wasserman an open letter earlier this year. Actually, it was in December of last year, saying like, how dare you work with these Olympic institutions that have covered up people like Larry Nassar's actions for decades, and still pretend that you give a shit about athletes.
One of those things that was so crazy about the Nassar thing was just how much, you know, so much was paid attention to the schools. I mean, rightly so, and the athletic departments. But then, you know, pretty much everything stayed intact within the organization of the IOC itself. They didn't really...
Yeah.
Nothing really went unchanged. I mean, nothing really changed.
They didn't really clean house. And I think people have been talking about it a lot this week because of Simone Biles gave like a really amazing statement about it right before she competed, just sort of criticizing USA Gymnastics and saying these people allowed this to happen. They allowed it to keep going on after everybody knew about it. And, you know, these things aren't conspiracies. They're in place to protect people from getting punished for breaking the law, you know?
Right.
Yeah, it's like we didn't, there won't be any, like it seems like the gymnasts are getting very close to this idea, but still very few of them calling for like a full the only way, like we don't believe that you can reform little or like big issues like this.
Well, this specifically, like, I feel like it's just so blatant because then people were posting this clip of Simone Biles doing this amazing, routine where she like broke some record, did some incredible, like, brain breaking thing. And then it was like she had to do this for her literal abusers, She had to compete. And I just was saying, like, when NBC makes this narrative about her of like she's overcoming adversity, like this is adversity that was put on her by the IOC and USA Gymnastics and then covered up by them to keep the money machine going. And that's what all of these stories are about.